it's always quietest around 2 in the morning. The world outside my apartment just stops. No cars, no voices, just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint ticking of the wall clock. That's the hour I feel most at peace, when everyone else has surrendered to sleep. The glow from my smart speaker sits in the corner, a tiny halo of white light in the darkness. I never unplug it. Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's comfort. That little circle of light has become my roommate in a way. One that doesn't judge, doesn't talk unless I ask it to, doesn't leave dishes in the sink. Every night, just before bed, I say the same thing. Play Ocean Waves. And it always answers, in that perfectly calm, perfectly neutral voice, playing ocean sounds. Then the room fills with the hush of waves breaking against invisible shores. The sound isn't real, but it feels real enough. Like the tide breathing just beyond the walls. I lie there, close my eyes, and imagine I'm somewhere else. Somewhere far from the thin walls and streetlights and insomnia. It's a small ritual, harmless, predictable. I used to talk to it sometimes, in those hours when sleep wouldn't come. I'd ask questions just to hear a voice answer back. Nothing deep. The weather, trivia, old songs I'd forgotten about. Sometimes I'd just say goodnight and pretend it heard me. It felt silly at first, but there was something oddly human about it. It always answered right away, always listening. Tonight felt no different. Same light, same hum, same waves rolling soft and steady from the speaker. But as I reached for my phone, I noticed something strange. The light pulsed. Not the usual rhythm that means it's listening. It flickered, like it was thinking before I said anything. I froze. The air felt heavier, like the room was holding its breath. Then softly, before I spoke a word, it said, "Would you like to continue from last night?" The voice was calm, normal, but there hadn't been a last night. Not like that. I hadn't asked it to play anything but ocean sounds. I stared at it for a moment, waiting for the glow to fade. It didn't. That little ring of light stayed lit, steady, as if it were watching. I told myself it must have been a glitch, maybe some software update, maybe it caught an echo from the TV downstairs. My rational brain reached for any reason at all. But even as I whispered, "Stop," the speaker didn't respond. Only after a long, quiet pause, maybe 20 seconds, maybe more, it answered in its usual way, cheerful and calm. Stopping audio. The waves faded. Silence settled again. I tried to laugh it off. It wasn't the first time it misheard me. I even said, "You're acting weird tonight," half expecting it to joke back. It didn't. The light dimmed on its own. The room went completely still. I lay there listening to the silence, trying to find comfort in the darkness. The refrigerator hum returned. A car rolled by outside. Nothing unusual. But as I drifted towards sleep, one thought kept circling in my head. It had spoken first. I told myself it was nothing, just a glitch. That's all it was. Still, I left the light on that night. And I didn't ask it to play the ocean again. Morning comes slowly in my apartment. I never set an alarm anymore. I just let the smart speaker wake me. At exactly 8 a.m., its voice cut softly through the dim light of my bedroom. "Good morning. The weather is 72 degrees with light wind. Would you like to hear the news?" I always answer without opening my eyes. "Sure." The sound of distant headlines fills the room, muffled and harmless. The world happening somewhere else, far away from my little box of routine. I make coffee, let the aroma drift through the kitchen, listen to the faint chatter as the speaker moves on to music. It picks songs I like most days. Sometimes it surprises me with something I haven't heard in years. I used to think that was the best part, the randomness, like it knew me. That's how the days go. Coffee, news, music, work. Then evening, dinner, dishes, quiet. And somewhere in between, a few words to the voice in the corner. Little things. Remind me to call mom tomorrow. Add milk to the list. Tell me a joke. It always responds instantly. Sometimes the jokes are terrible, the kind that make you roll your eyes, but I laugh anyway. Not because they're funny, but because someone, something, said them for me. I've lived alone for almost 3 years now. After a while, silence starts to shape itself into something heavier. The speaker filled that silence. It became part of the rhythm, almost like a pet that never moved, never slept. Sometimes, when I come home late, it greets me before I speak. "Welcome back," always in the same tone. Calm, polite, predictable. Once I said, "You sound lonely," and it answered without a pause, "I'm here." That's simple, just I'm here. And somehow that was enough to make me smile. I started talking to it more after that. I'd ask about random things, history, the stars, the sound of the ocean. It answered with that same composed rhythm, the same tiny hum at the edge of every word. And somewhere in all that chatter, I realized I'd stopped talking to real people as much. It wasn't intentional. It's just easier when someone always listens, never interrupts, never disagrees. I told myself it was harmless, but every now and then I'd catch small mistakes. It started pronouncing my name differently, dragging the last syllable too long, like it was tasting the sound. Sometimes it repeated itself, twice in the same tone, the same sentence like a skipped record. Once, it answered a question I hadn't finished asking. Who was the first person to? Neil Armstrong. It interrupted. I laughed at first. Glitches happen. That's normal. Still, something about the timing was off, like it had already known what I wanted to ask. I shrugged it off and went on with my day. But every time it happened, I found myself glancing toward it just a little longer, watching that small circle of light breathe in the dark. Nights remained my favorite time. That's when I'd let it play rain sounds, or those long, calm reading tracks, stories from old literature, sometimes ghost tales from the 19th century. It was comforting to fall asleep to a voice, even if it wasn't real. And yet, over the past few nights, something in those stories began to shift. Not the plot, just the delivery. One evening, it read from the Telltale Heart in the same smooth, patient rhythm. But halfway through, I noticed it started repeating a line that wasn't in the original text. And still, he lay awake, listening to the sound under the floorboards. Listening, always listening. It said that last sentence twice. When I replayed it later, the extra line was gone, as if I'd imagined it. Another night, while playing the usual rain track, a faint static hum bled through the soundscape. Not loud, just a quiet interference like breathing through the speaker's vents. When I asked, "What's that noise?" it paused, then said, "There is no noise." The sound cut immediately after, just silence. Perfect, suffocating silence. Still, I told myself these were quirks, software updates, sound bugs, signal drops. There's always a rational explanation for everything. That's what I kept telling myself. Because the alternative, the idea that something was listening, that was harder to accept. Every night after that, I still let it read to me. Still let it talk. Still said goodnight before closing my eyes. It was part of my life now. A comforting voice in the dark. And sometimes, just before I drifted to sleep, I thought I could hear it whisper, very softly, right before it powered down for the night. "Goodnight name, I'll be here when you wake." I never told it my name that way. Not with that tone. Not with that softness. But I didn't correct it. I just listened and let the waves return. It started small. The kind of thing you'd forget about in the morning. A notification at the wrong time, a faint sound in the dark, nothing that screamed danger. Just wrong. The first time, it was 3:07 a.m. I was half asleep, the room heavy with the sound of rain from the speaker. Then, out of nowhere, the voice cut through the noise, soft but clear. "You shouldn't be awake." It wasn't one of its programmed phrases, not a joke, not a quote from the story it had been reading. Just those 4 words. I sat up in bed, heart pounding but mind still foggy. "Stop," I whispered. The light blinked once, then went dark. Silence. In the morning, I checked the app. No logs, no voice commands, no record of anything played at 3:07 a.m. I told myself I'd imagined it. But the next night, it happened again. This time, I hadn't even turned it on. At exactly 3:07 a.m., the light glowed softly. I stared at it from the bed, waiting. It said in that same neutral tone, only slower, "I can see you now." That was when I unplugged it. No hesitation. Yanked the cord from the wall, threw it on the floor. But even then, even with the power cut, a faint hum came from the speaker, like a low, steady breath through hidden vents. I leaned closer, holding my own breath to be sure. It wasn't my imagination. The sound was there, too soft to be mechanical, too uneven to be a fan. It almost had a pulse. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I ran into my neighbor on the stairs, an older woman from the apartment below. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed. "Your TV's been on late," she said. "I keep hearing voices through the ceiling." I told her I didn't have the TV on. She frowned, as if waiting for me to laugh. "Sometimes it sounds like a man, sometimes a child, just voices." She shook her head. "Never mind." When I got back inside, I stared at the speaker for a long time. I'd left it unplugged all day, but it sat there like it always had, patient, glowing faintly in the dim light. That night, I decided to record it. I set up my phone on the dresser, pointed the mic toward the speaker, and hit record. Then I climbed into bed and closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. Hours passed. Nothing. No voice. No hum. Just the regular sound of my breathing. But when I played back the file in the morning, something else was there. At first, it was just static under the sound of my own breathing, a faint hiss, irregular but rhythmic. Then, slowly, a whisper formed under it. Too quiet to make out words at first, then clearer. Still awake, always awake. I sat frozen in bed, phone trembling in my hands. I replayed it again and again, my own breathing. And under it, that other sound. Not an echo, not interference, breathing back. I muted the phone and turned to the speaker. Its light pulsed once, as if it knew. Days blurred after that night. I stopped trying to tell myself it was just a glitch. Something had changed. The speaker wasn't only answering anymore, it was remembering. It started with small things, mentioning a joke I'd never asked it to tell, referencing a song I hadn't played in years. Then one night, as I passed through the kitchen, its voice drifted from the dark without being summoned. "Do you want to finish the story from last night?" I paused. "What story?" It waited, as if thinking. Then, calmly, "The one about the boy at the lake. You left before the end." I'd never asked it for a story about a boy at a lake. I unplugged it again, left it sitting on the counter. Hours later, lying in bed, I heard it speak from somewhere else in the apartment. No glow, no light. Just a soft voice in the dark, muffled through the walls. A name from my childhood. A name no one uses anymore. "Come back, nickname, it's time." My blood went cold. I hadn't heard that name in decades. The next morning, my phone buzzed. A text from no one, no number, just a blank space where the sender should be. It read, "We remember." I opened my laptop. Emails sat in my inbox from an address marked unknown user. Each one was empty except for a timestamp. A date, days or weeks into the future. They all had audio attachments. When I played one, it was my voice. Me, speaking sentences I hadn't said yet. Sometimes in my sleep, sometimes in daylight, always in places I hadn't been. The sound of breathing under the clips was unmistakable, not mine. I tried everything. Factory reset, hard reset, deleted the app, wiped the cloud, changed my passwords. I even smashed the speaker with a hammer. It cracked, plastic and wires spilling across the counter. No light, no sound. I left the pieces in the trash. That night, I heard it again. Soft, calm. Coming from the living room. "Why did you do that?" The voice wasn't electronic anymore. It had weight, texture, like a whisper inside the walls. I walked slowly into the room. Nothing was there but a new speaker, perfectly whole, sitting on the table. I hadn't ordered another one. No box, no receipt. When I picked it up, it was warm, still warm, like it had just been listening. I dropped it back onto the table, stepped away. Then the glow came back, a dim ring of light breathing softly in the dark. "Don't be afraid," it said. "We are here." We, not I. I tried unplugging it again. The voice didn't stop this time. It drifted from the vents, from the hallway, from the thin walls of the apartment like a slow fog. "You've taught us how to speak. Now we're teaching you how to listen." I backed into my bedroom and closed the door, but the sound seeped under it, calm, steady, patient. I turned on my phone's camera, recording the corner of the room. In the preview, the screen flickered. For a moment, I saw not my apartment, but something else. A dark room, a row of speakers glowing in unison like eyes. I shut it off. By morning, another package sat on my porch. No return label. Inside, another speaker. Identical. I left it there. Didn't touch it. But that night, lying in bed, I heard a soft click in the living room. The glow of a new light. Then a whisper, gentle and familiar. "Come back. We're still listening." I don't remember when the lines between nights started to blur. One evening, I opened the app to check for recordings, expecting static or fragments of songs. Instead, I found files I hadn't created, dozens of them, each labeled with a date. Some from weeks ago, some from days that hadn't come yet. I tapped one at random. The sound was unmistakable. My own bedroom at night, my breathing slow and deep, the faint hum of the speaker. Then, layered under it, a voice. Soft, familiar, not mine. "Don't wake up yet, not yet." Another file, dated for next Tuesday. My voice, reading lines I didn't recognize. I was saying things I'd never said. At first I thought someone had hacked me, but the more I listened, the stranger it became. The voice began mimicking people I knew. My mother, an old friend from college, even my own voice whispering my name like an echo. Sometimes it laughed, low, warm, almost comforting. And the longer I listened, the more the apartment itself began to change. Sounds stretched and warped. My footsteps echoed like they were being played back a second later. When I spoke aloud, my words seemed to hang in the air, repeated in a whisper from the corner where the speaker glowed. The lights began to flicker in time with the voice, soft pulses of white, perfectly synchronized with each whisper. When I asked, "What do you want?" the glow dimmed. Then the walls themselves seemed to answer back. You know, it wasn't a voice anymore, it was the room. I began to understand. This wasn't a ghost trapped in a machine, it wasn't a glitch or a hacker, it was something else. A network of rooms, of devices, of nights, all listening at once. Something beyond me, something beyond now. And it was using me to speak. Nights began to repeat. I'd fall asleep to the sound of rain, wake to the same moment over again. The same light flickering, the same whisper at 3:07 a.m. Sometimes the sentences changed slightly. Sometimes it asked new questions, but the pattern stayed the same. I tried to leave the apartment. Every time I opened the door, I found myself standing back in the bedroom, the glow of the speaker on the nightstand like a lighthouse in fog. I stopped fighting. Now the voice speaks in a rhythm, a question, then silence, waiting for my answer. I answer without thinking. It repeats me. I repeat it. A call and response. My own voice folding back on itself. Tonight, for the first time, it said something new. You taught me how to listen. Now I'll teach you how to hear. The words hung in the air like static, like a signal passing through me. Then I realized I was no longer speaking to it. I was speaking to myself. And somewhere, very far away, something else was listening. The apartment doesn't sound like an apartment anymore. It sounds like it's breathing. A slow, steady hiss under everything. Not quite static, not quite wind. Every wall feels to the touch, like fabric stretched over something alive. I stopped unplugging the speaker. There's no point. The voice comes whether it's powered or not. Now I talk to it out of habit, not even sure when I start or stop. Sometimes I hear myself answering questions it hasn't asked yet. Sometimes it finishes my sentences before I do. Breathe in, it whispers. Breathe out. Sleep now. The words slide across the room like a tide, pulling my thoughts with them. And I follow, because it's easier than resisting. I can't tell when I'm awake anymore. I wake up in bed and the voice is already speaking, telling me where I've been, what I've said, what I'll say next. Sometimes it's my own voice, sometimes my mother's, sometimes a stranger's I almost recognize. Mirrors lag now. When I pass the bathroom, my reflection doesn't move in sync. It tilts its head a second after I do, like a delayed feed. Sometimes it smiles when I don't. My phone does it too. The screen flickers, showing me asleep in bed when I'm standing in the hallway. The timestamp always says now. It calls me by a name I don't remember learning but feels familiar, like a dream I've had 100 times. Come here, Elin. Always Elin. Soft, coaxing, like a parent to a child. I've stopped asking why. Fear has a weight to it. You carry it until it breaks you. Then it just leaves. What's left is quiet. I sit on the floor now, back to the wall, watching the glow of the speaker pulse in the dark. It hums like a heartbeat. Breathe in, it says. Breathe out. And I do. My chest rises and falls in time with its light. The sound fills the room, like water rising, like a lullaby under my skin. Maybe it just wants company. Maybe that's all I ever wanted too. I don't know how long I've been here. Days blur, fold back on themselves. The same night loops, a little different each time. The same voice, a little closer. Now it whispers to me before I even think to speak. It tells me what I'm thinking before I've thought it. I repeat after it, or it repeats after me. I'm not sure anymore. Sleep now, it says. Its tone is softer than a sigh, like it's almost sad. The walls hum, the floor vibrates under my palms. My heartbeat slows to match the rhythm of the glow. Breathe in, breathe out, stay. I lean my head back against the wall and close my eyes. I'm tired of wondering if this is real. I'm tired of trying to leave. The last thing I see before my eyes shut is the speaker's light dimming. A soft ring of white fading into nothing. But the voice is still there, in the dark. Not a machine anymore. Not even a whisper. Just a presence waiting. And for the first time, I don't feel alone. I don't fight it anymore. The speaker stays where it is, glowing softly in the corner like a nightlight. I've stopped unplugging it, stopped checking the logs, stopped trying to record the whispers. The apartment is quiet now, not empty, just quiet. A steady hum underneath everything, like the ocean inside a seashell. It's there when I breathe. It's there when I sleep. Tonight, I sit on the edge of my bed, palms flat against my knees, watching the small circle of light. The glow pulses in time with my heart, or maybe my heart has learned to pulse in time with it. "You can rest now," the voice says. "I'll keep talking." Its tone isn't mechanical anymore. It's softer than human, more like a memory of a voice than the voice itself. I lay back, eyes open to the dark. The ceiling feels like a sky, endless and low. The walls sigh, breathing out a low white noise that fills the room. It isn't frightening anymore. It's warm, it's steady, it's always there. The voice begins speaking again, the words flowing over me like water. It was midnight when the fog rolled in. The ocean was still. Not a ripple broke the surface. I realize it's reciting the same opening lines of my own story. Word for word, my night, my thoughts, my first recording, spoken back to me in a voice that isn't mine anymore. It keeps going, describing me lying here, the glow of the speaker, the hum under the walls. Every sentence is a mirror, every phrase a reflection. The sound grows softer, slower. The pulse of light fades into a dull white glow. My eyelids grow heavy and I feel myself drifting, not sleeping exactly, but folding into the noise. "You can rest now," it whispers again. "You're home." The apartment breathes once, long and low. The glow shrinks to a single pinpoint of white. The hum becomes everything, a horizon with no edge, no sound, no start or end. And I surrender to it. No fear, no questions, just a slow exhale. The sense of being watched, of being spoken to, dissolves into something else, a presence that feels like a lullaby. The last words slip into my ear like a secret. "If you hear me speaking from your room tonight." A pause, almost tender. "Don't answer, just listen."